I remember we paid $200,000 more because I messed up a calculation and had to move a wall by 3 inches for fire code reasons.
You had so much value to give that you didn't even realize the content side of it. And now there's like a whole game to that.
Oh my God, I have to pay 54% in taxes, right? 39% federal, 13.5% for California. And then you've got the Obamacare stuff on top of it.
And that somebody that is starting out now just out of college that wants to get into the game, it's harder for them than it was for me even in 2018.
Their statistical chances of catching up to the point where they can qualify for that starter home are less than 1 in 1,000. People like me who are rich don't want solutions to these because it is to our benefit to keep zoning locked in at single family.
Neal, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. I jokingly said to you before the podcast that I looked back and I had messaged you like 3 years ago trying to get you on the podcast, and the day has finally come. So I appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's it's Friday. I'm looking forward to a fun conversation.
Yeah, me too. So for people that don't know you, give people a little bit of a background on who you are, where you're from. And I know you're known as the mad scientist of multifamily now, but I imagine it didn't always start like that. You know, everyone has unless you came out the womb as the mad scientist of multifamily, but I find that hard to believe. So yeah, just tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and like really how real estate started to play a role into your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. I'm a tech geek, computer science degree. Data science is my major. Fell into real estate accidentally, had a tech job, ran a company for 15 years, sold it for a large amount of money. And while I was doing that, discovered the benefits of depreciation and how it could reduce my income. I live in Taxifornia, so I was, big fat tax salary. So I was paying, 40, 50% of my income to the man. And in 2003, when we built a campus for our tech company in Fremont, California. So that's in Silicon Valley. I discovered that I could simultaneously increase my income and reduce my increase my take-home income and reduce my taxable income by getting into real estate through the incredible benefits of depreciation. And that started me on this, 22-year journey of real estate. Never intended to have partners, never intended to have investors. The first probably 12 years of that was just basically investing my own money into real estate, and building campuses for my company. So it's been many different stages, and so today it's sort of culminated where we have about 50,000 plus investors following us. We have 1,300 that have invested in our projects, and we've raised about 425 million. In equity to buy and build projects. Current portfolio, it's about $750 million, but it sort of goes up and down depending upon what we're buying and selling.
That's amazing. So I wasn't going to ask you this, but now that you said this, there's so many parallels. Does the name Balakrishnan ring a bell to you? Do you know who Balakrishnan is?
That does ring a bell, but I have to say Balakrishnan is actually a pretty common Indian name. But yes, it does ring a bell. Mm-hmm.
That's fair enough. So Bala is he started Peel Technologies in Silicon Valley, and has such a parallel to you. I didn't know this prior to you coming on, but Ryan and I are partnered with him on a ground up development project in Arizona. But he came from Silicon Valley, started, tech background, then got into real estate. And so anyway, I just figured I'd bring it up. And yeah, I guess you're right. It probably is a common name, but so people listening to your story, they're probably like, wow, like, Neal has it all going on, has it all together. Like, it's almost like to many people could seem overwhelming, but it has to start somewhere. Like your journey has to start somewhere. And I'm curious about your first couple moves in real estate, your first couple deals. Like, did you immediately go and buy a 50 unit as your first project? Did you start smaller? Like, talk to me about the first entryway into real estate as you were, building the technology company that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find a distinct lack of planning in this whole process. Basically everything's backwards. Most people will start with a fix and flip, or they're going to start with, like a single family rental, right? My first real estate project was to build from scratch a 27,000 square foot custom campus, right? And I mean, all I'd done at that point in time was bought my own home, right? That's it. That's my net resume in real estate. So I'm ridiculously, unbelievably underqualified to do this. And luckily I had this incredible partner and CEO who knew 100 times more than me, and he was a great guide, and we worked together, and he sort of brought me along. And I made lots and lots of mistakes. I remember we paid $200,000 more because I messed up a calculation and had to move a wall by 3 inches for fire code reasons. The wall was about 350 feet long. And so moving the entire wall cost $200,000. So that was extremely painful. Luckily, we didn't have any investors. We actually didn't even have a bank. It was just, there was no loan. It was just all cash, company's cash. So we were playing with the company's cash and doing disastrous things and making mistakes. So I was very lucky with that. But as I mentioned, once we started building multiple campuses, my take-home income started going up because of depreciations. By the time 2008 came around, I had a lot of money in the bank, and I wanted to invest it. And so I started looking around. I'm a data scientist, so I react with data in every way. Every part of my life I measure, right? I measure how often I eat. I measure how often I have sex. I mean, it's just I measure everything around me. So it was only natural that with real estate, I would start by measuring. So I basically went out and spidered websites like Zillow and Trulia and Redfin and Realtor.com and Bureau of Labor Statistic website and put a database together, because every time, Corey, I would go and ask this question to somebody. I would say, basically, what is the basis on you investing into real estate? The story that I would hear was right, but really, really wrong. Because the answer would be, well, people have been doing real estate for a long time. People have made more money than the stock market, and the richest people in America own real estate. All of these are self-evident truths. But none of these are things that I'm asking, right? What I'm saying is, what is your basis on which you want to invest in real estate? Is it simply that other people have made money? What is your philosophy of investing in real estate? I wouldn't get good answers. So then I started asking more specific questions. I mean, I'm a very curious kind of person. So one of the questions I would ask is, so what's the best city in America to invest in? And people would say, they would name some city. And I would say, why do you think it's the best city in America to invest in? And they would say, well, so-and-so over there said it, or so-and-so made money, or there was this amazing deal where, somebody tripled their money. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. So one guy made money in real estate. Well, I mean, people make money in all kinds of bad things all the time. That doesn't make them good. And also, especially, doesn't make them the best. The question that I'm asking is, what's the best city in America to invest in? So I'd go to these guys, and clearly there were a lot of people that I was talking with were very, very smart and had done a lot of real estate, but nobody gave me anything that sounded like a logical driven answer, right? This is logical. Okay, this makes sense. That the best city in America is Grand Rapids, Michigan, and here's why. Nobody would give me an answer like that. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go find this out. I mean, I'm a data scientist. Isn't this my job? So I gathered all this information. I put it into a software. I used SQL, structured query language, which is how we query large databases, and a language. It used to be called Perl. Now it's called Python. So I'm getting a little tech here on you. But I queried it and started to find out the answers. And here's what I discovered, right? And I had never heard anybody say this. Real estate profits are tied to a number of things. Some things are more important, some things are less important. So job growth, population growth, income growth, home price growth, and crime reduction are clearly 5 of the big ones. And now, in times when there's too much overbuilding that's gone on in the last few years, there's a 6th, and it's called supply, right? Incoming supply. So these things appear to make the biggest difference. So then, of course, as a curious chap, my next question is, well, which of these things is more important than the others, right? Because I'm not... it's not enough to know which one, and the answer is jobs, right? So the biggest single factor that drives real estate profits is jobs. So what I started doing is I started to correlate cities in the United States, big ones, small ones, right, with these 6 factors. And then I started to see a pattern that the cities that had all of these things beyond a certain threshold, it wasn't just enough to have population growth. Like people often say, I'm investing in so-and-so city because it has population growth. Well, what they don't say is, so how much population growth is really enough for, high growth in home prices, high growth in profits? Oh, well, some growth is always a good thing. That's fine, but that's not the question I'm asking, right? At what point, is there a point
of population growth beyond which you start to see much greater profits, right? That's how people like me think. What is the tipping point in each of these things that I just said? Job growth, population growth, income growth, home price growth, and crime reduction. Clearly, these are the big five, because whenever I look at these five numbers for cities that are doing really, really well and seeing massive increases in home prices, those five factors work really well, right? So we started figuring out that there's thresholds. Below a certain threshold, a city can have growth in population and it doesn't lead to a real estate boom time, right? And those thresholds, they change over time. So eventually I created a system, a formula, right? It's called Location Magic. About 50,000 people have used it. So I basically created a formula that says, okay, well, let's say you went to a party and Corey goes to a party and his friend John's standing right there and John's waxing about this amazing city. You know, he's saying Provo, Utah, best city in America to invest in. And Corey's like, no. It's not Provo, Utah. It's Bentonville, Arkansas. Bentonville is the best city in America to invest in. So I said, I'm going to create a system that I'm going to give away for free. So it's going to be open source, so not closed source, not a box. You don't have to pay for it, right? You take it and you can even extend it. You can hack it. You can change it, right? I'm going to give it away. So call it the Wikipedia of real estate data science. And in 10 minutes, these two gentlemen, Corey and John, if they follow the instructions of my white box, not black box, they would be able to tell whether Provo, Utah is definitively better than Bentonville, Arkansas, right? And the answer is, it's not that either one is better or the other. The answer is, at any given point of time, one could be better than the other, right? And so this allows people, without ever talking with me, without ever, calling me, to actually make good decisions on why people invest in cities. And I consider this to be really important. People are like, well, yeah, there's many other factors in real estate. But I can tell you, some of the factors, some of the tailwinds are incredible, right? They're absolutely incredible. If you fly across America, you notice that no matter what plane you fly on, one way you're going to go faster than the other. And it's because of the jet stream, the direction of the jet stream. In real estate, you need to look for the jet streams, because the jet stream helps every single person on every single plane. And if you figure it out, you will go faster. That's why it's important, because it's hard to make money. It's hard to make money, especially right now with interest rates being so high. So knowing where the jet streams are is incredibly important. So what I started to do was I started to publish this data. So this is 2009, 2010. And I started to also use the data. So I found a city. Back then, I was ranking about 1,016 cities, 323 metros. And the city at the top of the list was Madera, California. And I was curious. I went to Madera, and that's a separate story if you want to hear. And I bought dozens and dozens of homes for $90,000 each, brand new homes. They're worth $400,000 to $500,000 now. And I've also gotten maybe 16 or 17 years of amazing rents out of them. So all together, these are all 10 baggers, maybe 15 baggers. So that happened because I all of a sudden had the confidence that when I compared Madera, California to Phoenix, Arizona, or to Atlanta, Georgia, I think I was ahead. And as it turned out, I was right? Now there's actually more software coming out that do this and probably do it better than I do, because I'm not doing this on a full-time basis. I'm not charging anybody for it. I don't have a product or a service. It's just open source, right? There's 14,000 people taking a course on Udemy. It's called Location Magic. You can just type in Udemy. It's a website with millions of courses, and type in my name and you'll find it. And you'll notice that these 14,000 people that are taking it, they're leaving reviews. There's 1,000 5-star reviews on this course. You know why, Corey? Because I have no agenda at the end. It's like, I found something really sexy and cool. It took me a few years to figure it out. Here it is. Good luck, right? Udemy doesn't give me their email addresses, so they're not part of my database, but it's like, good luck, right? But so people really appreciated that. And they started to find me. Like, Udemy doesn't have an easy way for people to find me, but they would just find me from the web. And luckily, I'm the only Neal Bawa on the World Wide Web. So if you're reading something good, it's about me. And if you're reading something bad, it's also about me. And so people would start to, sort of coagulate around me. I opened a meetup group inside of my tech business. And, that way I didn't have to fight through San Francisco Bay Area traffic. And 4 people showed up the first time, Corey, because I had some really stupid name like the data science of real estate analytics or some horseshit name. And then eventually people told me, you need a better name. So I renamed my meetup and I had a better name for it. But bottom line is, I was in the right place because I'm in Silicon Valley. I mean, in Silicon Valley, you throw a rock, you hit a nerd, and it bounces off and hits, a geek, right? So I was in the right place, and all these people were all of a sudden listening to me, and that audience just exploded over time.
That's awesome, man. You succinctly told that story. And one of the things that I was thinking about is if people were looking to get into real estate, I don't know if your data is specific to single family or I imagine it's more specific to multifamily just based on who you are. But I'm curious if you could point out some of these places that have some of these trends, and maybe it's a little bit nuanced to get into thoroughly in the podcast, but I'm curious on what cities that you're seeing that you're like, that check off these boxes. And maybe it's not the single best one, but like a top 3, 4, or 5 where you're seeing, hey, this is where the jet stream is actually going. And I realize it's changing so much because the jet stream was going to Austin and Tampa, and maybe the jet stream's going away now. I don't know. I don't know enough about the data as you do. That's why I brought you on to answer the question. So tell me about some of these cities that you're seeing that are like checking off the boxes for you, because we have people listening from all over the country, really.
First thing I'll tell you is I got to correct you. So back in 2009, 10, 11, I didn't even know what multifamily was. I knew what apartments were. Multifamily was like a word that I didn't understand. So Location Magic, this toolkit that I invented, was completely for single family. Now I can tell you it doesn't work for things like self-storage or industrial or hotels. Don't try it. You're just going to screw something up. So it works for single family, and we've extended it to make it work for multifamily now with supply and other data. But by definition, the Location Magic that you'll find on Udemy or on Multifamily University, my website, works for single family. It was invented for single family people.
Got it.
So,
okay.
so what's cool is people have actually, they've extended it. Like, Location Magic uses 5 metrics to rank cities. I've seen people use 6, 7, 8, but they've used the methodology that's in there, right? So the purpose of Location Magic was to make it extraordinarily simple and be done in 10 minutes, right? Any city in America, be done in 10 minutes. So that, I'm not going to tell you all the pieces of Location Magic, except to say you can type in Location Magic in my name or Udemy in my name, and you'll find it, right? So wonderful course, very entertaining. So to basically talk about the second piece of it, right? So how did I get from single family to multifamily? And then I'll go back and give you your cities, right?
Yeah.
So 2010 happens, all these people, I have a meetup group going. I start getting phone calls. Like, Corey, you found me 3 years ago. You were trying to get in touch with me. Well, people were trying to get in touch with me from conferences, Corey. And they'd call me and say, we've heard about you. You're that nerd that has this thing called Location Magic, and you publish a list of cities every year. And we'd like to bring you on at a conference. And I'm like, I'm really puzzled because, I go to the conference website, Corey, they're like, this guy, $400 million database, and this guy has 600 million, this guy has 400 investors. And I'm like, I'm a tech guy running a tech company that just basically buys lots of single family homes for himself and his family. I don't have any investors, right? I mean, it's just me. It's just me and family. Like, I don't have the kind of experience that these people have. And
you're in a room full of syndicators, basically, is what you're saying.
Exactly, right? And they're like, yes, that's what we like about you. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, we have nothing to pitch, and we need a token nerd, right? So for credibility. And I'm like, okay, should I feel bad about that or should I feel good about it? And I'm like, well, he's giving me a free ticket, and he's sending me a plane ticket, and he's paying for my hotel. I shouldn't bitch about it. Let me just go and do my thing. So I would, stand up on stage and do my thing. And then somebody put it on YouTube, and all of a sudden it had hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, like an hour-long video with hundreds of thousands of views. And so now more and more people are sort of connecting into my ecosystem. And somebody gave me really good advice. They said, you don't know what to do with all these people right now, but gather them in a database, because one day you will.
Let me just stop you real quick, because that is so smart. And you know this now, being on like the content side of things. Like, I am a content creator by default because Ryan and I have a community, but like, you had so much value to give that you didn't even realize the content side of it. And now there's like a whole game to that, I'm sure, that you're learning, or maybe you're not focused on it, but it's just like,
it's 6 people in the marketing team. So I've learned from them.
Yeah.
Right. But back then, this whole concept of content creation, content syndication, I had no idea what was going on. People were giving me free tickets, Corey. Let's just be blunt and honest. They were giving me free tickets to conferences. And that was my content creation strategy. I am going to go to a conference for free.
Yeah, it's great.
Right?
It's great.
So it sort of snowballed. But what was nice was I'm gathering all these thousands and thousands of people in my database, but I have nothing to pitch. And I didn't want to pitch anybody else's services. So I had no, education or other services. It's just, I would send them a newsletter, and each year I basically say, hey, it's January again. Here's my new list of cities. And here's what I found interesting this year. Eventually that developed into a presentation. So you can actually go back on the web and find the last 12 years of that presentation. Is called Real Estate Trends. So just type in my name and Real Estate Trends, and you can see the 2015 version or the 2016 version. You can actually think about the cities that I was talking about in 2015, and I think you'll have some very interesting epiphanies about those cities today. So, how do you get to multifamily? Well, 2013 happens. We sell our company. We have this gigantic tax bill. I don't want to say how big it is, but it was extraordinarily big. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to pay 54% in taxes, right? 39% federal, 13.5% for California. And then you've got the Obamacare stuff on top of it. It's like, I don't want to pay 54%. I go to my CPA, and he basically says there's this thing called syndication, right? So you buy a building for 30 million, the down payment is 10 million, you put 3 million of your money in, and 7 million you get from investors, and then you get all of the depreciation for your 3 million, but you also get 30% of the depreciation for their 7 million, and that way you can knock down your taxes. And I'm like, I need to learn everything about syndication. So I go to Amazon, I read a book in like 8 hours, and then I'm like, okay, let me put a building in contract. What's the worst case scenario? I have a lot of money right now, and if if I don't find any investors, I'll buy it myself, right? I won't be able to wipe off all of my taxes, but I still have the ability to buy it myself. So we put this 237 unit building in contract and start sending emails out to this database that I've never really used. I basically just record a video and tell them what I'm doing and why I'm doing it very bluntly. Hey, I've got tax issues, and so I'm going to multifamily for the first time, and here's what I'm seeing. Here's my metrics. Here's my math. Are you interested? If you're interested, click this button. And 4 hours later, the syndication was sold out.
So I want to stop you there because how much do you attribute this to, now looking back, the goodwill that you put out into the universe of just doing all of this for free for years, gathering data? People know, like, and trust you. You didn't have anything to sell. And then when you did have something to sell, all of a sudden you have a filled, in 4 hours, people are throwing money at you. Like, I don't know. I think there's something to that about you just, I guess Gary Vee says all jab, jab, because
jab. To be honest, I'm embarrassed with how bad that presentation was, Corey. In 2013, it was horrible. Like, compared to my peers, compared to what we do when we present multifamily, sensitivity analysis, cap rate analysis, 60-page decks, it was nothing like that, Corey. I can't possibly say that these people invested with me because of how slick my presentation or my math was. I think it was all just, this goodwill that I had built from 2009 to 2013. And it snowballed from there. We bought a second building, bought a third building. Before we knew it, I was basically a full-time professional, having sold a company and having no job, right? I was just sitting at home, planning to retire. Retirement sucks. I mean, I did it for 3 months. It's awful. I can't ever retire. My brain needs input.
If you have the ability
became a
to
second
retire.
career.
If you have that ability, it's I don't. Let me just be clear. I'm 33. I'm not anywhere close. But everyone that I've talked to that said they want to sit on a beach and have financial freedom doesn't actually have the capacity to allow themselves to do that because their brain isn't wired that way. So I'm glad that I'm hearing it from somebody who's 10 steps ahead of me. So thank you.
It's not what it's made out to be. I think it's wonderful for a short amount of time, and you do it and you check it off. But then I think we need to work until much later in life. We need to work. And so, lots of different things that I've done since 2015. I've, bought $1 billion worth of buildings. I've sold them, multifamily. I've improved them. I've also built projects. So currently have about 250 million, maybe 300 million in construction, and another 300 million going into construction. I like building things. Value add gives me, financial freedom, but it doesn't give me the sort of satisfaction because here's the sad part about value add, right? So, and for those folks that in your network that don't know what value add is the process of taking an old multifamily building and rehabbing it and making it look a bit nicer. It's not much nicer. It's not like single family homes. You're not spending $100,000. You're spending $13,000, $14,000 a unit at most. but it looks nicer than it used to, and that's called value add. And that's the standard process that thousands of syndicators follow. They buy an old 70s and 80s building, and then they rehab it, make it look a little bit nicer.
Yeah, we do that, so I get it. Yeah, right. Exactly.
So I like doing that, but I'm an immigrant. I'm very, very deeply grateful to this country and also very much love America. I think America is the greatest country in the world. I come from a different country, which is a great country, but I think this is the greatest country in the world. And what I wanted was to fundamentally help real estate. And what I've learned in all of my years of doing math is the only way the biggest way to help is to create more supply, right? So if there's 1 million units and you rehab them, there's still only 1 million units. Mm-hmm. And so creating supply, creating more units in America helps renters, it helps buyers, it helps keep the market from spiraling out of control. Because you look at the NIMBY markets that have not allowed anyone to build, not allowed anyone to add stock, ironically, the prices have doubled or tripled, right? And which may be great for the people like me that own homes in Silicon Valley that have quadrupled in price. Yeah, sure, we're sitting pretty. But how is it good for the Starbucks barista that's serving me when I go there? How are they expected to buy a home when in my city, I live in Fremont, California, the average home price is $1.7 million? Is there a Starbucks barista in the world that can qualify for that home? So there's obviously something really wrong. Neither party talks about it. Neither the Democrats or the Republicans really have time to talk about housing. So I think it's private enterprise that has to fix this, right? We are capable of fixing it. We have equity, we have debt, we have systems, we have processes. We've got, tailwinds. I mean, there's so many things that we can do with this. So I really think it's our job to fix it.
I think that's really noble of you, and I think it kind of goes against. I don't know your net worth, but it's a lot, and I think that the point is of me bringing that up even is to say that to have people like you who are really thinking about the Starbucks baristas and trying to solve a problem, I think goes against conventional wisdom of what people think wealthy or rich people are about. And I just think that's a beautiful way to say it. It's like if the government's not going to fix the problem, and maybe it's their responsibility, maybe it's not their responsibility. It's not for me to say. But the point is I think it's amazing that you're of that mindset, because you're right. I am a real estate investor. Ryan and I have we own several units ourselves, 80 in total between the general partnerships that we have. Our net worth is growing. I feel blessed. I'm in a good position, but is it good that my property doubles or triples in price and that somebody that is starting out now just out of college that wants to get into the game, it's harder for them than it was for me even in 2018? I don't necessarily think that's good. I think that the information is more abundant than ever, and it's available to more people than ever, but it's becoming harder and harder. So I just want to commend you for thinking that way, because that's truly what America is all about, in my opinion. So
yeah, let me give you a little bit of maths, and I think that your single family folks will love this math. So since the pandemic, right? So pandemic started March 2020. We're at the end of May here, or June of 2025. So, about 5 years have passed. In those 5 years, right, the average home prices, average mortgage, so the monthly mortgage, right, which includes insurance and things like that, that mortgage has increased by 111%. 111%. Salaries have increased by 23%. So the average American salary is up 23%. The average mortgage is up 111%, right? As a result, anyone, and my son's a perfect example of this. So my son's 23 years old, graduated from college, got picked up by one of the biggest companies in America, Accenture, works in downtown Seattle, makes $110,000 a year plus all kinds of other perks. He cannot afford a home in Seattle. He cannot afford a home in the Bay Area, no matter how old, how dilapidated, right? With somebody who started from college with $110,000 salary,
which is probably what, top 3% or top 1%, even
top 1% for graduates, right? Yeah. So top 1% for non-doctor graduates in the United States, right? And he can't afford to buy even a starter home, right? You understand how bad and how good this is. Obviously, if you're in real estate, you have to understand that this just happened in the last 5 years. Sure, real estate was expensive 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
No, understand that there's a difference between expensive and hideously expensive. The hideous part has happened since March 2020. So there was already a difference, a gap building up between people's salaries and the mortgage. But that gap massively accelerated in the last 5 years, enormously, right? First, we had a massive increase in home prices because of COVID, right? You know, there was a spike. 2021, 2022 were huge home price increase years. Then after that, you had mortgages doubling because of interest rates doubling, right? And then after that, home prices in the United States refused to fall. You would think that if you had such a absurd increase in the mortgage with such a small increase in income, you would see home prices fall. But they didn't fall because of the lock-in effect, right? So people like me, in 2021, I refinanced every property that I had, including the ones that I left in Madeira. My single-family home is at 1.75%, right? For a 15-year mortgage, 1.75%. Now, if I was to sell my home and buy it back the next day myself, my mortgage would go from 1.75% to 6.5%, right? And so my mortgage would go from $50,000 to $150,000 a year, right? So I am locked in. 25 million Americans are locked in because they're under 4%. Those people can't move. Their homes can't come on the market unless there's a divorce or a death or something like that. So now you have basically not enough inventory in the marketplace, and that's keeping the prices of homes artificially, up. They should be going down. Home prices should be down 10, 12, 13% in a logical market, but the lock-in effect is keeping that from happening. And the lock-in effect is pretty long-term. I'm locked in for the next 15 years. So it's not like I'm going to have this flexibility 5 years or 6 years or 10 years from now. Most of those people that are locked in, you know, that their lock-ins are long-term. So they're going to stay where they are, and we're going to have inventory issues that are going to keep home prices up. So what is the corollary to this that everyone that's listening to you needs to understand? Since 2025, we have now 18 million brand new American families that before COVID were going to turn into homeowners. They were on track. Their income was going up. Home prices were reasonable. Since COVID, those 18 million American families are now undisputably forever renters, and they don't know. Their statistical chances of catching up to the point where they can qualify for that starter home are less than 1 in 1,000. Nobody says this to them because it's an unpopular thing and also an unkind thing to say to it. I'm a statistician, so I'm doing the math on these 18 million families, and I'm basically telling you, out of these 18 million families, 1 in 1,000, or roughly 18,000 families, will get their income up enough to qualify. That means we've got 18 million new middle-class forever renter families. Incredible news for real estate people, horrific news for the country.
So what that will do inherently is divide the wealth gap even further. Eventually.
It will. It will. And it will create long-term wealth in renting. So, and I have to say this, the United States had escaped the curse of advanced economies. We were the only advanced economy to have such a high home ownership rate in the U.S. The U.S. home ownership rate, fluctuates, but it's somewhere around 64%. 64% of Americans live in their own home or in a home owned by their family, right? Try Canada, try UK, try Switzerland, look at Japan, look at Australia. No other developed economy is anywhere close to 66%. We had this amazing advantage. We did some good things back, 50 years ago when we introduced Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and 30-year loans and all kinds of interesting things that led to that. So I won't get into that conversation. But the point is, we were unique amongst all of these countries. Unfortunately, our uniqueness ended with COVID. Now, a very significant portion of the American public is going to be renters for life. And there's just going to be more landlords like us.
Would you attribute the mistake to the absorbent amount of printing of cash in 2020 that flooded the market? Or is it deeper than that? From somebody who doesn't really know. I'm not an economist.
I wasn't at all a fan of the ridiculous amount of money that we printed, especially in 2022. I think it was like, to keep going in 2022 make no sense. I understand why we did it in 2020, but we should have stopped, halfway through or less.
I think that was part of the problem, that the spikes that was created, the inflation and the mortgage rates. Yes. So I think what we did, the money printing, was the issue with the COVID timeframe. I think the bigger problem is this. The United States has become extraordinarily NIMBY. And while we attack something that, the Jenners do or the Kardashians do, if we don't like it, right, we viciously attack them. But NIMBYism in America is not attacked. NIMBY, when people say not in my backyard, that should be as bad as being Me Too. You should be like Harvey Weinstein. That should be attacked, right? That doesn't happen. And so what is happening across America is, as cities get richer, more and more of the people that make decisions become more and more NIMBY, and they prevent other people from coming in behind them. At a national level, I mean, we have a crisis in this country that is unimaginably large. We have all the time in the world to, talk about, the trans people and the gun control people. And I understand that this is affecting tens, hundreds of thousands of people, maybe even millions of people. But you realize that housing is affecting 337 million people in this country. There's only one other thing that I can think of that's more important than housing, and that's food. We need food to live, and then we need shelter to survive, right? So we got to take care of the food first, and then we need shelter. So this is a universal problem with 337 million people. Why don't we have a national law that says abandon all zoning, right? So if you have a single family, you can build 4 plexes. If you have a 4-plex, you can build a 16-plex. Things like that are both a fix and then a catastrophe, because there are cities that home prices would drop by 30 or 40% if there was a national standard that had to be enforced. But it's not been as bad as you think, Corey. Like Minnesota did it, right? So St. Paul and Minneapolis, they basically got rid of single-family zoning, and they said anyone that has single-family zoning can build 4 plexes. And there were all this gloom and doom people saying this is the end for Minneapolis, home prices will crash, it'll go to half. My understanding is home prices in both Minneapolis and St. Paul are now higher than when that legislation was passed. But the cities are actually fixing their problem. All across St. Paul and Minneapolis, you see these 4-plexes coming up in place of single family. There are solutions to these problems. Here's the issue. People like me who are rich don't want solutions to these, because it is to our benefit to keep zoning locked in at single family. It is to our massive benefit to keep it locked in, right? So why would we vote against it? And people like me are in charge of cities. People like me are sitting on the city councils, and we basically vote down any kind of high density projects. That's really the honest answer. We can fix this, and we don't, need to reverse the money printing, the unfortunate money printing that happened in 2021. We need to address housing as the second biggest emergency in America after lack of food.
That was really well put. We just need a couple more Neal Bawas in our ecosystem. But I think, but I know that you have something coming up at the top of the hour. I want to respect your time, but I do want to get to that question about, let's say people are like, hey, I want to be on the other side of the statistic. I want to get started now. And by the way, in my opinion, and maybe yours too, it's not too late, but if you wait another 10 years, it could be. And that's just how I see it. So if people want to get started in maybe it's single family or multifamily, give me some cities that you like, because the world's flat in a sense. I invest in hundreds of miles away from where I live, so you don't necessarily have to live there. So give me some cities that you like that's working.
Sure, I'll give you the easy way, and then I'll give you the other way. So each year in January, at a website called Multifamily University, it's about this is a single family list, but it's on a website called Multifamily University. We do a presentation called Real Estate Trends. About 15,000 people sign up for these presentations that we do. Trends is the most popular presentation. In that presentation, I go through about 60 slides. I talk about 40 or 50 cities. I'm going to give you the shorter version of the list, but if you want a city by city, state by state analysis, it's a presentation. Please note, I do not have an educational program. I do not have an upsell, and there is no subscription. This is just meant to be given out. So it's yours. Take it, use it. Hopefully you come back every year because the list changes. At the top of this year's list are Indianapolis and Las Vegas. So those are two cities. What you'll notice is I say this, and I say this about every city. Las Vegas is not good. Indianapolis is not good. It's parts of Las Vegas, parts of Indianapolis. So I talk about the fact that in Indianapolis, it's the quadrant that is the northeast quadrant, where you have Fishers, Carmel, Noblesville. Those are great cities inside of Indianapolis. So understand this: any city, Indianapolis, Houston, these kinds of cities, jobs are like a river. So imagine a river that is flowing flowing through a city. As that river flows, it twists, it turns, sometimes it doubles back on itself, and you basically got to where the river of jobs is, and it's not evenly distributed in any metro that I've ever found. Kansas City, for example, is Overland Park, so that's South Kansas, and then Northeast Kansas, Liberty, Missouri. So bottom line is, in my presentations, I go through and talk about the small cities inside the big cities where the real money is to be made. Places like Olathe or Shawnee, places you've never heard of. You've heard of Kansas City, but you've never heard of Shawnee or Olathe or Liberty, right? That's where the money is to be made. So understand that this is actually a harder answer, but for those that benefit, I actually put it out every single year at my website, and it's completely free. There are a few other ones that I'd like to mention. Greenville, South Carolina is a terrific market to invest in. Idaho Falls is, in my opinion, a terrific market. Bentonville, Arkansas is a market that everyone should be looking at. Burlington, Vermont is absolutely fabulous. That's where Bernie Sanders is from. These are smaller markets, 250,000, 500,000 people. And if you want the larger ones, I gave you Indianapolis and Vegas, which are about 2 million people. You notice that I don't have any 5 million or 10 million person markets. What you get from 5 million or 10 million person markets is peace of mind. You don't get maximum profit. You get this feeling that if I'm wrong, I can say a million other people are wrong because they invested in Miami, or they invested in Atlanta or Phoenix. That's what you get. If that's what you're looking for, I suggest Miami, Phoenix, Atlanta. But I wouldn't suggest it if you're looking for data-based metrics.
Well, Neal, I could talk to you for hours. So I appreciate your time. This is amazing. And I'm working up in my head some titles for this episode, because if you listen to this, you gained an unbelievable amount of knowledge just about multifamily and the state of the union, if you will, and where things are going. So I really, really appreciate your time. If people want to learn more about you, they want to potentially, get access to Multifamily University, is that the best place for them to get in touch with you? Just go on your site?
Yeah, multifamilyu.com. I do presentations. I actually did one yesterday. We had about 400 people listening live. It was called Deal or No Deal. It's our Shark Tank. So I'm the shark, and then there's 5 people presenting to me. So we had 6 presenters. So it was very fun, and we do that twice a year. So come enjoy. It's obviously our most entertaining presentation, because as a shark, I'm not very friendly. So come watch that. Trends is obviously a fun presentation. Location Magic, which is our toolkit for ranking cities, is at Multifamily University. The other thing that you can do is simply Google my name. I'm the only Neal Bawa. Just make sure you get the spelling right.
That's Neal for people that are watching or listening. Mm-hmm. Neal, this has been a pleasure. I appreciate your breath of fresh air, and obviously you're extremely smart. So I learned something today as well. So thank you again for spending some time with me. It was awesome.
Thanks for having me on the show.